I know Will through his work as a commissioning manager here at CCG, and specifically Will is our lead manager on a programme called Working Together, which is about working with other commissioners and the providers across South Yorkshire, Bassetlaw and a bit wider afield than that.
So Will is my current line manager for the Working Together programme. He's the programme director.
So as Chief Officer of Rotherham CCG, I'm also the lead Chief Officer for the Working Together project, and Will's the Programme Director for the Working Together project.
I know Will in his capacity as Programme Director for the Working Together programme, and therefore my capacity as one of the Chief Officer partners in that programme and also Chair of the Working Together Programme Executive.
So I'm working with Will in regard to the Working Together programme. I'm the lead for Doncaster CCG and Will's the director of the Working Together programme.
I'm the communications and engagement lead of the Commissioning Working Together collaborative, of which Will is the programme director and therefore my line manager.
I think the thing that I have seen him try to do a bit more of has been try to rise above the complexity that comes out of the detail and try and say a little bit more about strategy and policy, really. So try and bring some clarity when there's a great deal of detail that others might otherwise have to wade through and make their own mind up. So, and I found that very helpful.
When I started with Will, it was just Will and myself in the programme, so what I have noticed is he's able to step back and do a bit of strategic thinking, a bit of blue sky thinking, which is really where he's most comfortable. So originally he was getting more involved in the programme and the project in detail, and it's prevented him from doing what he was happiest with. So I feel like he's more happy now and he's comfortable with the work that he's doing in the programme. Because he's got a strong team around him. He's just happier in his approach to things. It's a bit like bouncing a ball and it kind of drops and doesn't bounce, whereas now you drop it and it bounces and bounces and bounces off into the distance. He's just visually more comfortable, I think, with where he's at.
I think the first thing for me to highlight is that I've only known Will for a year, and because of the nature of our roles, I probably only see him a couple of times a month. So I think the things I notice about Will now, I can't probably articulate as differences from 12 months ago, but rather the things that I pick up as I get to know him and work with him more.
So in the last 12 months I've been working with Will, I've noticed he's developed a couple of different management styles. Particularly with the Chief Officer group, he can be quite assertive in a good way, and I think that's needed to progress the project. But I've also noticed that when he's dealing with the clinical chairs, he can be more patient and supportive and take a completely different approach. And it is quite noticeable how he handles it. I don't know if he's aware that he does it, but it's been very noticeable. I've been impressed by his resilience as well, because the project has taken a few twists and turns and there has been a lot of uncertainty. And Will always stays positive and upbeat and professional at all times. And it's really been good to see that he's managed to maintain that self-resilience throughout the period.
I think he is more succinct in his language and his approach to things, and I think when I first knew Will, I remember that we used to have quite long-winded conversations about things, which were always very interesting and informative, but they tend to be less kind of wordy now. So I get the feeling that Will understands his business a lot more and is able to get to the point and be sort of insightful quicker, I think.
I've been working with Will now for about 4 months and knew him previously about 5 years ago in a different capacity, and he is extremely different in that he has grown and started to use some of the skills that I think were certainly there 5 years ago, but are now extremely evident in a leadership capacity. So for example, his emotional intelligence, which was always extremely good, he now is working with that in a way that I think is very powerful, and it enables him to collaborate and work across some very complex and complicated issues and with personalities that are not always as straightforward as would enable a smooth running of a programme. So that's one example, but he is a much broader leader than I have seen before. I have been hugely impressed by him.
Consensus, I think. He does seek consensus.
She was supportive for Will. He's extremely inclusive with me in all aspects of the programme. He's supportive and he tries to develop me personally as well, which I really appreciate.
The word that I would choose to sum up Will's leadership style is astute. And I've chosen that word because Will has to work as a network leader, so it's not in a straight line of command scenario that he's working, which means he has to keep a number of different players, both on commissioner and provider side, and different organisations on board, and I think he's very astute at doing that.
I think if I was going to pick one word to describe Will's leadership style, it'd be engaging. Probably because of the area of work he performs in the collaborative environment, but he is someone who is a people person. He clearly is an extrovert who enjoys talking things through with people, but he is very engaging and he is well liked, particularly as well by people who he works with. He's very good in very many different environments as well. It can be officers of the CCG, it can be the clinicians, but he's always interested in what people have got to say, and his engaging style, I think, is what brings people to work with him.
I think I'd describe Will's leadership style as inclusive. I think he takes measures to involve all partners very much in a collaborative way, and understands where he will need to invest extra time, energy, effort and resources in bringing on board people who may not initially be, intended to do that. So I think he's good at inclusive and collaborative leadership.
Will's leadership style is, for me, 2 words, and I know that's cheating, but I feel strongly about both of them. The first is that he is affiliative. He puts people first. He cares about those that are in his team and wider than that. And that compassion comes through, and it enables people to connect and build a relationship with him that enables him to do a great job. And his second style would be, for me, democratic. He looks for consensus through participation. He doesn't disappear down any one track. He's looking for taking people with him all the time, and those are evident in every day's connection that I have with him.
Yeah, the most outstanding thing about Will, perhaps over the last 12 months, is I think he's always appreciated the need to address the detail all the time. But I think the new thing is that is to try and synthesise that into a policy direction and a strategy direction. Some of that coming from himself, but also learning from other people. So we've looked at similar programmes in other parts of the country, for example.
I think what he's had to deal with in this programme is a range of characters and different levels of engagement with the programme and different politics, and he's handled that so well in meetings with high level people, and he has their respect. When he speaks they listen, so that impresses me about Will.
I think if I was to pick one thing that's impressed me about Will in the last year, I think that would be his input to the South Yorkshire Cancer Strategy Group, and in particular how tenacious he has been in not avoiding difficult issues. And the issue that I particularly have in mind is around